Hey YouTube, this is VidHead85 and I'm going to talk a little bit about religion. I'm going to talk about Islam, and I'm also going to talk about that KKK rally, the KKKristians in Alabama. But first I'm going to get to the Islam part of it, because what I want to talk about is Islam is not pro-black, Islam is not pro-white, Islam is just Islam. Secondly, Muhammad was not black, he was white. Or considerable by today's standards, he would be considered white. He would be considered more Arabic. He was also polytheist before the revelation, or the as is stated. However, he was epileptic, so that very well could have been a dream or something like that. And in fact, in the Quran and the Hadith, they talk about when the revelations came, he would break out in cold sweats and he would fall to the ground and jerk. Today we would equate that with epilepsy. Back then they believed that it was divine visitation. Whether or not it was divine visitation, that is up to a person to believe. I do not believe that they were, simply because of the fact that it sounds so much like epilepsy that I don't believe that it very well could be. There was also something about a mole on the prophet that was taken to be a sign of him being a prophet. The problem is moles are dead skin. Like what we know about science right now would definitely say that that's not true. Like that someone's sign of being a prophet or something is not dependent on whether they have a mole on their back or not. Also, Muhammad owned slaves, and he called them raisin heads. And in fact, slavery existed in Saudi Arabia, or may very well still exist in Saudi Arabia. We just don't hear about it until about the 1960s, when the slave markets were closed. So, so for the black Muslims who believe that Islam is about rejection of Christianity as a white religion, you're sorely mistaken, because Jesus was not white, he was not black, he was Jewish. And it's kind of funny how a lot of Western Christians will take the Jewish God and reject the Jew. Francis Schaeffer said that. So anyway, about this part of Islam being pro-black, it is not. It was simply a religion that was embraced because of the fact that people thought that Christianity was a white religion. Mainly, when Christianity started, it was as an offshoot of Judaism. The Middle East, Israel, Palestine came later, but it was after the Romans banished the Jews and named it after their enemies, the Philistines, who were in fact descended from, the Ishmaelites were absorbed into a bigger tribe, and where most Arab people traced their line through Ishmael. I don't believe that to be sufficient, because they were absorbed into bigger tribes in the book of Genesis. However, the sons and daughters of that union, those unions and whatever, are what we call the Arabic peoples. But anyway, but it was an offshoot of Judaism, because they believed that the Messiah had already come, and that the promised one of the Old Testament had already come. And they spread it through down into Italy, up into Gaul, into most of Western Europe, and as they basically most of what we know now. And then it spread to England. England was a distant shore in the Roman Empire, and it spread to where even Turkey, right about where Turkey is. It was a large empire that eventually yielded under the pressure of its own weight. But it had also spread down into North Africa. There was, in the book of Acts, there was Philip, who was, since there was a lot of trade routes and a lot of diplomacy and everything like that, since the Roman Empire was so large, and having it as an enemy against you was not wise, there was an Ethiopian man who was under Queen Candace. And he was of North African descent, and he was reading what is in Isaiah chapter 53, as we know of the Bible today. And he was asking, is he talking about himself or is he talking about someone else? And then Philip talked about Jesus and explaining that this is the promised one, and this is what Jesus is and who he is. And then the man was baptized. But I say that to say that Christianity had in fact spread into Africa, Sudan, Nigeria, many other places, also through Western imperialism and colonialism too. So to say that, so in a way, for those to say that Christianity is a white religion, it's not very accurate. And to say that, that you know, some things that you believe are against the Bible are imported from whites, that's very convenient of you to say. So anyway, you know, the Nation of Islam and all those things were more bred out of a struggle against the white race and what they believed that the white man's religion was. So they believed that, you know, we must find, I believe it was something like, wait a minute, we'll find something else. In other words, okay, now let me do some soul searching, and they found Islam. That's, I think, kind of the root of where the Nation of Islam and a lot of black Muslims may get some of, I don't know how to say this, but that's probably where like the root is, if you will. And some people believe that Islam to be inherently black, but it is not. I submit to you that it is not, and it cannot be, because it wasn't. It didn't start with people in Africa. It started in the Middle East, and the Middle East was almost like an epicenter of trade. And there were so many different people, and there are just like there are Hispanics and Latinos who are very, very dark-skinned, who are darker than me, and who just like there are Latinos who are very, very light-skinned, who could pass off as white if they wanted to. Just like the same thing with blacks and other races. There is a varying rainbow of color. So I submit to you that Islam is not inherently black. It cannot be. It was not to be in the first place. It was simply a religion, and I kind of liken it to a tribe. A tribe that, like in ancient times, they wanted to not only protect their tribe, but conquer others and absorb them into themselves to make themselves great. Many times that's how it is, but actually it did start out like that for Muhammad. And as I look more and more at his behavior, not the behavior of his followers, his behavior, I can't come to any other conclusion than the fact that because of his example, Osama bin Laden was just following what Muhammad wanted. That may be a harsh thing to say, but I believe it to be true because based on the research that I have done over these few years following 9/11. Now let me get to the Alabama KKKristians. You people are sick. You people are vile. When I saw that headline of white Christians only, I wanted to throw up. Simply because God is not a white God, a black God, or a God of this or that. Like, as far as race is concerned. You people, and I say you people because you are racist. You are someone who cannot possibly know God, because how can you love God and not love your neighbor? How can you claim to know love if you believe that someone based on their race, isn't worthy of God's love and affection? You are the worst kind of person ever, because just the thought of I just don't understand why. You know what? But then again, I do. The only thing that you have that you can claim with as far as superiority is your white skin and white male privilege. But then again, that can only get you so far. You can't. You are the reason why the world is so messed up now. Because of people like you, people are disheartened. People like you are the reason why people break off from the churches, those kinds of churches at least. Where are you? And seek a place where they don't have to listen to that bull crap. I can't formulate the words to express my disgust for you. You're worse than scum that's between the toes. You're worse than toe jam. I don't get you. You don't understand anything. You don't understand God. That's all I have to say. Like, you don't know. You can't know. It's not. You're awful. You're awful. You are the degenerate. You are the abomination. I can't say any more. I can't say any less. But it's just... You're terrible. You're horrible. There's nothing that I could possibly say to you that hasn't been said already. But you know what? Something tells me that you're going to do a hell of a lot more harm to yourself than I could ever do with a video, or that anyone else could ever do with a boycott of that conference, even if it was held already. You're so blissfully unaware. You have to be, to put something like that on. Have a great day, you too.